you doing? Doing good. I hope you are. That's good. I'm good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 o'clock. Time to begin our May 7th meeting. This time we'll call ourselves to order. And the item 1 on recognition, the first thing will be proclamation observing National Preservation Week. At this time I'll recognize Mr. Anderson.
This is the proclamation observing National Preservation Month. Whereas the National Preservation Month was established in 1973 by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Whereas the City of Monroe has been a certified local government since March 1986. And whereas the City of Monroe has approximately 400 parcels in South Monroe Historic District. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. Whereas historic preservation is relevant for all communities across the nation, both urban and rural, for all Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas in the City of Monroe, National Preservation Month 2019 will be observed through the following 3 events sponsored by the City of Monroe Historic District Commission. Tour of the Union County Historic Courthouse. The time for that is May 18th. The tour starts at 10 a.m. Reservations are required, and that is at the front steps of the historic courthouse. Photo contest for guideline update ongoing through the month of May. Submissions due by May 24th. Again, the location is the Historic District. Architect scavenger hunt ongoing through the month of May. Submissions due by May 31st for the historic downtown area. Now, therefore, I, Bobby G. Kilgore, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Monroe, do hereby proclaim and observe May 2019 as National Preservation Month and encourage the local citizens to participate in activities that foster awareness and appreciation of historic structures and historic contributions to shaping the history of Monroe, Union County, North Carolina, and America. I believe we have one of our staff members that is going to make a few more comments.
Good evening. I'm Carrie Mendler with the Planning Department. I just wanted to take a brief moment to speak about National Preservation Month. Preservation Month was established in 1973 by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Local preservation groups, state historical societies, businesses, and civic groups across the country host events to celebrate and bring awareness to historic preservation. And we're excited to host a few events to celebrate Preservation Month throughout the month of May here in the City of Monroe. So as mentioned, on May 18th, we are hosting a tour of the Union County Historic Courthouse. Space is limited for this tour, and participants must register by May 15th. We do have registration forms online and in the Planning and Development Office. We are also hosting a scavenger hunt throughout the month. Participants will guess the property location based on a picture and description of the property. Everyone who gets all property locations correct will be entered into a raffle contest, and 4 winners will be selected. And we did get this in today. This will be one of, we have 4 different puzzles that are the historic prints that you guys have seen before. So the winner, one of the winners, will be able to select which one they want. So this is just an example of the one that we do have. And then lastly, we're going to have a photo contest, and participants will submit original photos of a structure or feature of a property in the historic district, and the photos will be uploaded to the city's Facebook page, and the top photos with the most likes will be featured in the historic district guideline document that will come before council later this summer for adoption. Registration forms, as I mentioned, for the tour, the scavenger hunt forms, and the photo contest rules and submittal details can be found on the city's main webpage or in our office across the hall. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
What is the maximum number of people that can take the courthouse tour?
So we're 25 to 30, and I've got about, I believe, 20-ish right now. So I've filled up pretty quick. So.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Item 2, public comment period. I have some people signed up. If you will, I have Mr. Dan Shive and Mr. Kazire. If you will hold it to 3 minutes on this, and we appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir. Mayor and City Council, thank you for the opportunity to being here with you tonight. Wesley is going to follow me in just a moment. But a couple of years ago, just to give you a little history, particularly about Wesley, a couple of years ago I attended a seminar at Lincoln University on drug addiction and drug education, and Wesley was a part of that panel, and in addition was a lady who had lost her son to drug overdose. During that time, his compelling story, and he spoke later. I had invited him to be on my Wednesday talk show on radio, and he did that where I learned even more about what Wesley had gone through over the many years that he was a drug addict. And the thing that I probably went away with at that time was that I was impressed not only for where he was at that point, because I think Wesley told me earlier he's been clean now for about 5 years, which I think is awesome. But that he made a commitment not just to deal with his own life and his own drug addiction, but he felt compelled to work with other young men in trying to help them and to share what he knew, because he's walked the walk and he's talked the talk, and he knows how to share those kinds of experiences with other young men who have also experienced those kinds of demons. Then he started as a volunteer at Ground 40, and because of his leadership and commitment, recently he was named the executive director. And his impact at Ground 40 has just been amazing, what he has done for these young men. I have met several of these men. They are fine individuals. And the thing about it is, when you talk about drug addiction, you're not talking about a specific group. It reaches all areas of society. And I had the attitude, and I think I told Wesley this on a couple of occasions, and I think it was probably a bad thing to have to admit, but I think a lot of folks probably share it as well, is that my impression of people who are on drugs is, oh, let's just put them in jail. Just get them out of sight. They don't need to be on the streets. But I tell you, when you meet someone who has struggled with drugs and who has come through it successfully, and see what impacts they can make on other people, it really totally changes your impression, of people who are dealing with these kinds of things. So I just wanted to, introduce Wesley. I have asked him to come and take a few moments just to talk about Ground 40 and what they're doing and the impact that they are having on young men's lives. So Wesley, if you'll come up.
I'll try to be very brief. Some of you I know, some of you I'm meeting for the first time, but I am Wesley Kazai, Executive Director of Ground 40, and we are a program that is helping men transition back into this community, out of prison, out of recovery, out of homelessness, and it knows no demographic. Right now we have an 18-year-old kid who we got at a UA high school, and we have a worship pastor from South Carolina. So like I said, it knows no demographic, it knows no boundaries. But we're helping these men come back into the community and helping them transition back into a beneficial job to help them be a governed member of society where they have the rules and the standards that we're supposed to live by. The fact of the matter is we are in this epidemic right now, and it is invading our community, and we just want to help them. They're coming back. We just want to help them get established before they come back and they wreck again. Because it will happen if they are not trained and guarded up and taught how to walk this walk out. I know from experience, I have been discipled back into this myself, I've gone to the high schools, shared my testimony with the high school students. I also sat on forums with the sheriff and the DA. I believe that right now we are one of the best things that has happened to Union County dealing with addictions and convictions because of addictions. Last year alone, we dealt with over 100 men with successful transitions who have jobs, who were back with their families, who were being the fathers they were called to be and the husbands they were supposed to be and the children they were meant to be. So I just wanted to introduce myself. Once again, thank you for your time, guys. Dan, I appreciate you inviting me to this. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kazari and Mr. Shive, thank you all. Appreciate what you do in the community, and I know you appreciate it by the families. Thank you so much. I have Ms. Loretta. Would you like to address the council, please?
Good evening, everybody. I probably don't need any introduction for the council people or for our mayor. But I'm Loretta Melanson. I live here in Monroe and the founder of Litter Busters. Anybody that wants to talk to me afterwards, I'd be happy to tell you about our group. I want to give an update because Litter Busters has been speaking with the mayor, with council members for quite some time now. And we had a very successful sweep, and I want to recognize Mayor Kilgore for being there and actually getting out and picking up litter with us on the roads that lead to the landfill, which are very heavily littered. We are growing. We have 140 Facebook members, friends, and so we're getting the word out. People are paying attention more now to litter. We are creating awareness by meeting with different clubs, talked with Civitan, we've spoken with the Rotary, very well received, and I think that both of those clubs are going to be a real asset to us in brainstorming. The thing that we have to do now, we're picking up, we're making a difference, but we have to find out the root cause and how we can prevent litter in the first place. So I'm going to say to our city again, and I said this to our county commissioners last night, we need a task force that is going to bring together many different points of view, many different experiences, and hopefully come to a plan, an organized plan of how to approach the lack of pride, personal and community pride, that I think is at the root cause of our litter problem. So thank you, and I'll be giving updates along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Tim Edwards, would you like to speak, sir?
Yes, I want to speak about Simpson Farms.
Yes, I have several signed up to speak on Simpson Farm at the public hearing. You want to do it at that time? Or
If that's okay.
whatever. Okay, that'd be fine. Okay, anyone else who would like to speak on public comment period? Okay, if not, we'll move on to item 3, presentation discussion, Union County Public Schools funding request, fiscal year 2019 and 2020. Mr. Faison, we'll turn that over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. As an introduction to this item, there are a few points I request the opportunity to briefly review for members of council and for our audience. Following a discussion providing funding to the Union County Public Schools at the April 16th City Council meeting, Monroe City Council requested a representative from Union County Schools to offer a presentation on the health services program's results, requirements, objectives, and funding levels, and uses of past funds the city has provided. This information would be received by City Council and allow Council to consider and in support of the school's request to possibly reinstate funding for fiscal year 2019-20. Funding for the initiative was not formally requested by the school system. It was not included in the current budget. Funding also is not programmed presently in the manager's proposed budget for the fiscal year 2019-20, which begins July 1st. Funds were provided for the program in fiscal year 2017 and 18 as a one-time allocation. There are a number of factors that the City Council might consider along with the potential reinstatement of funding for the health services program. There are 4 that I'll summarize. In the manager's proposed budget, I delayed approximately $11 million of expenditure requests from 10 departments that comprise the general fund and includes a number of crucial capital program elements that could not be met. Second, city expenditures will need to be reduced by an equal amount to provide funds for the health services program. And if you're inclined, staff is prepared to illustrate possible options for reducing those expenditures. Third, additional public safety positions were not funded, which defers meeting the staffing plan of 12 firefighters needed to fully staff proposed temporary fire station 6. And fourth, funds for positions in the Union County Public Schools Health Service Program will require characterizing the amount as a recurring expense and require matching dollar amounts and revenues. The program expense cannot be treated as a one-time allocation as it may have been for the single-year agreement in fiscal year 2017-2018. The city's initial funding of the school's request during fiscal year 2017-2018 recognized City Council's interest and enthusiasm to support the introduction of health science programs at Monroe Middle School. To provide a program update and answer your questions, Mr. Gerard McGraw from the school system is available to offer an overview of the health services program. I believe he's prepared to do so now.
Okay.
Sir.
You ready? Mr. McGraw?
Well, good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Faison. I'm Jared McCraw. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Student Support with the Union County Schools. I also have with me 2 of our nurse supervisors, Ms. Wendy Nilsson and Ms. Christine Skrakowski. They supervise the 43 school nurses that serve our over 41,000 students. You have a handout, and in that handout it outlines we have over 5,300 students within the city limits of Monroe at our 10 schools. In 10 of those schools, and 7 of those are classified as high priority schools. All 7 of those schools have full-time school nurse positions because of the funding in 2017, 2018. Well, how does that help? Well, as you see on this page, in 2017, 2018, there were over 21,000 health room visits within those 7 schools. 21,000. That's 22% of all the health room visits across our 53 schools. That helps. Thank you for what you did last year. Thank you. It really helped us. Student populations in our high priority schools is transient. So our nurses, they have to track immunization records. They have to make sure that the medical records and health folders are updated for those students. If you've ever been in a school, that is a really important item. You have to make sure that stuff's updated. School nurses also build relationships with our students. A full-time nurse in a high priority school is imperative. If you work at Benton Heights, if you work at Walter Bickett, Monroe Middle, Monroe High, any of those schools, you understand how valuable those school nurses are. There's 7 school nurses, there's 7 high priority schools. Because of the funding last year, we were able to put nurses in every school. As you can see on the second page, there's some good stories. We had a student, or 2 students, that went into anaphylaxis, or they went into severe allergic reactions. 2 school nurses were on site. They were able to administer EpiPens, and because of that, we stopped something that could have been worse. It could have gone further than just administering an EpiPen. Beyond that, they would call medical care. We would call parents. We would make sure that we got emergency services there. But because school nurses were on site, we were able to administer that EpiPen, identify the anaphylaxis or the severe allergic reaction. The other thing, we had a student not eating in the cafeteria. Well, we couldn't figure out why, are they sick, what's going on. The nurse identified the student had severe dental issues. The nurse helped the student and the family find the proper dental care, the proper health care. Without that school nurse in the school, we may not have identified that as quickly as we did. These nurses are valuable, especially in those high priority schools. And thank you for what you did, every one of you, if you were a part of that. The last thing I'll mention, some of you may have went to this about a month ago. We had a nurse, Walter Bickett Elementary School. They had a huge career day. Our nurse at that school organized that career day. So not only are they there for health care, they're there as a part of that school. And if you work in a school, you understand that. It's a family. These nurses really help out. That career day give those students at that high priority school hope. They showed them where they can be one day. But our nurses, and because of what you did and allowing us to place a nurse in every school, it's invaluable. But I would like, do you have questions about other questions about how we utilize our nurses?
I do. Prior to funding, how did the school nursing position operate amongst the Monroe cluster?
We would only have nurses on certain days. They would float from school to school. If a nurse was needed, the principal or the administrator at the school would be able to call for the nurse, but they would not be at the school every day. So if there was a need, if there had been a severe allergic reaction of some type, the nurse may not have been on site. Well, then who cares for the child? Probably somebody like me. And we call that a person who is, they're not a medical professional. So you may have a delayed care. So to answer your question, we would not have a school on site every day at those schools unless those funds.
So it was like an every other day type of operation, or?
It's according to how many health room visits. It's according to the percentages. Some schools would have it more often if they had more health room visits. We tried to look at the data from year to year and make sure that we placed them there on the days that they needed to be.
Right.
So, but not every day. They would just be there certain days of the week.
Right.
Question. In Monroe Middle, did they start the classes in conjunction with the hospital on teaching sixth graders about going into nursing or?
We do. Ms. Hines is the instructor there in the Health Sciences Academy. We work with her, so we do that. Yes, sir, Mr. Keziah.
Mayor, if I might, I have a question or two.
Sure.
Mr. McCraw, under the agreement the city had for that prior funding, one of the purposes of the funds would be to ensure that each school in the Monroe cluster had a full-time nurse. Did that happen as a
Yes,
result? Sir. And that an additional social worker would be hired within the Monroe cluster to address the emotional health needs of those students?
We have.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then the only other questions, I note there was a request for quarterly reports and funds accounting, and I don't believe that took place. Is that something that the UCPS or the board would be able to provide to the city if there is any determination on funding, even though it did not take place last time?
We can. I'll work with Ms. McCallam, our Chief Finance Officer. We can provide the information that would be needed.
And are you aware of why those reports were not provided?
I'm not, no, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question. At this point, do you know what funding is going to be available from the school board and county commissioners?
I do not. They have not finalized their budget. We discussed it the other night. The discussions were that with the collaborative partnership that we currently have, we're looking at adding 10 mental health therapists and 5 social workers throughout the school year. Additional nurses were not planned to be added during the 2019-2020 school year. Years go by too fast. So, but we did not plan to add additional nurses beyond the 43 we currently have.
You did not plan? Okay. Why did you not ask for the nurses through when you were requesting the social worker and the other positions?
In Dr. Houlihan's budget, what he requested was 9 additional counselors. and due to limited funds, Ms. Anthony, we do plan to look at those in years to come. We hope we can add more school nurses. We would love to see a school nurse in every school in years to come, but during the 2019-20, we did not ask for the funding for school nurses, for additional school nurses.
Let me just clarify one thing. With the city's contribution, you all were able to put a nurse in all of our inner city schools.
Yes.
Right.
As part of the agreement, we added 2 full-time nursing positions to schools within the city limits of Monroe. That provided a full-time school nurse in all schools which fall within the city limits of Monroe.
Which I think is a great job.
It's needed. And the reason I highlighted the 7 high priority schools is because you can see 22% of the health room visits were within those 7 schools. The demand on those nurses was great. As Mr. McGee asked, if the nurses were not in the school, the students would be seen by the data manager, the bookkeeper, somebody like me who's not a healthcare professional. I would much rather for them to see somebody like Ms. Nilsson or Ms. Strakowski, who is a certified school nurse.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
When we met with the school board and Dr. Houlihan, we talked specifically about, he had an idea of integrating nursing type programs into Monroe Middle to try to give the kids an opportunity to better themselves. Is this, has nothing to do with that? You're talking about nurses, where I thought really we were talking about starting these programs and letting them move on up.
This is not specifically, Mr. Keziah, about the Health Sciences Academy. We do have the Health Sciences Academy at Monroe Middle School. Hopefully we can expand that program too. That's a great program. But the thing I'm speaking about tonight, the funding you provided, we utilized that for 2 full-time school nurse positions, which each nurse costs, but with salary and benefits, approximately $80,000. So 2 nurses are approximately $160,000.
Councilmember Kazai, if I might, the reason the funds are directed in that fashion is that when staff met with the school system staff, we discussed what was fundable under the public purpose doctrine at that time. And the only thing that was fundable would have been health programs like that, which is how they tailored that. And the law has now changed, and it can be used for broader education under the budget that was passed last year. But at the time, in 2017, when you approved this, you were limited in what you could fund. You could not directly fund education. You're now permitted to do that. So if council were to, after making the determinations, the manager will request of you wishing to fund it, that would be a discussion of what it would then be used for, and it could be used for direct support.
Mr. Monroe, you said you was adding 10 counselors or 10 what?
The school system budget, Mayor, is for 9 high school counselors that would go in all the school clusters. The county, we have a collaborative partnership with them where we're adding for our social emotional learning program. So we're looking at adding 10 mental health therapists and 5 social workers to the entire county.
They all rotate?
They
not rotate, but they're not stationed at one school.
No, sir. That is correct, Mayor. They serve the cluster. The city of Monroe, we have a person at Monroe High School, someone at Monroe Middle, at CATA, and then all the elementary schools. We have social workers, mental health therapists, but because of the funding we were discussing, we were able to put a school nurse in every school. There has been a big emphasis on mental health. Nurses, remember, 25% of their education is in mental health. The first person a child sees, if they say, I'm sick, I don't feel well, it's not the principal, it's not the teacher. The teacher is some, but they see the nurse first. The nurse is our first person they see. If the nurse is not at that school and I say I don't feel well, you're going to see the data manager, the bookkeeper, or if it's serious enough, we may call EMS. We need these nurses at school. We need these nurses, especially at the high priority schools. So
Well,
thank
even a child that has mental health issues, that takes medication, that medication is still regulated by the nurse. So that is so important. But I mean, the kid cannot have that on their physical person, right? They have to go
That is
through the
correct.
nurse and have it properly administered, which is, to me, a critical need. If they have a mental issue that requires medication, they need to be able to go to that nurse and get that medicine.
Yeah, and that is a big part of the nurse's job, as Mr. Anderson said. They have to track the paperwork, make sure parents fill out the paperwork. You just can't carry your medication in your pocket anymore because it is controlled substances. So we have SROs on campus who do not like that. So we have to make sure that we have it in the nurse's office. Students come, they take their medication. So that is an important thing. Nurses serve so many roles. They're there for the entire social, emotional experience of a child. We have been focused on wraparound services this year, not only from the SRO, but to the nurse, to the mental health therapist, to the social workers, to the psychologists. If you don't address the whole child, you can't really be successful in the school without being healthy first and feeling safe. So I'm thankful for what you did last year, and we would really appreciate if you would approve it again. I think it served a great purpose in Union County schools that fall within the city of Monroe.
I'm sorry, wait.
One more question. Could you speak to the funding or the grants that the priority schools or some of the schools in Monroe received, the EPIC grant or Restart, or what that money was used for, and if that money, how was that money allocated and used at each school, and the amount per school?
So now, I can't speak to the amount, Mr. McGee. I wish I could. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I know we hired 6 mental health therapists that serve the city schools of Monroe. They can see any student. It doesn't matter about the insurance. They can see any student. If a student comes, has a mental health need, they can see the student. So that was 6 mental health therapists through the EPIC. They're EPIC mental health therapists. We also received some funding through the state mental health personnel grant. That was a state grant. There's 2 school psychologists and 2 social workers that are assigned to the Monroe cluster schools with that grant too. The funding, the amount, I wish I could. I don't.
It's about $2 million for the whole.
I think it was approximately. I can't tell you per school what that would be though, and I can get those numbers. I know he asked for the funding levels, and I will make sure with Ms. McLam I get that information to you.
So about 5 schools, about $500,000 per school. If it was around $2 million.
That's what it would be, yes, sir.
Okay. And that money can be used at their discretion at their schools.
It can.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it could be used for school nurses as well?
We have not used it for school nurses. We've not funded them that way, Ms.
But if it could be used at your discretion, do you have the authority to use it if it's a critical need for a school nurse?
I would have to ask Ms. McLam, our Chief Finance Officer. I know it's only been used for the instructional side, and school nurses have not been funded that way. But I can check.
Let's say about your program at the middle school, the medical program you've got.
Yes, sir.
I may be wrong in what I'm thinking, but it's probably the best kept secret in your school system. I've had the opportunity to be in there many times, on many occasions. I don't mean it's like Cali, but it's set up something like Cali. You got to, if I understand it right, you've got to qualify to be in this medical program. And I just wished everybody could see that, what they're doing over there at the middle school with these students that's in these medical programs, that the hospital is really backing it. I'm not using the right word.
It's a partnership, yes, sir.
Partnership, that's the word I'm looking for.
That's right.
The hospital's got a big part of the partnership in there. And of course, it's just about I believe it's just 2 years old, maybe 3. But see, as they advance from there to the high school, these folks is probably going to go into some type of medical programs. And this is what, in a few years, this is what you're going to really see coming out of this middle school, people don't know about. A lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. And I would hope that people would go over there and look at this medical program that they got going on at the middle school. I've had the fortune to be there, and I think it's a great program for our young folks and the students there at the middle school. So thank you for that, and thank the hospital for putting it on.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a
And
great
Wingate University is having it as well?
I'm sorry.
And Wingate University.
And Wingate University.
It's a great program. My wife is in the medical field. She does ultrasound. She's been over there and viewed this program. It's second to none, Mayor. And Atrium Health, the City of Monroe, Wingate University, it's a great program. But it is a health sciences academy. I think related to nurses, that's the importance of having a nurse there. So if they have questions of a medical professional, they can go to the school nurse at Monroe Middle and ask that nurse how it is to be a nurse. And
Well, it's a hands-on program. I've seen them. You just have to go and look at it. I'm not going to talk about what to do because I don't think
welcome
Denny has
to
a
come.
great program.
we would love to have any of you if you want to come, please.
For these reasons, I'm going to make a
Before you
motion
do that, I'd like to, we got a couple of concerns, but number one, I keep hearing that we funded you, the monies that you used from the city, you used it 2 years ago in our 2017, 2018. No, yeah, 2017, 2018 budget. Or was it the 20?
17, 18.
Okay, all right. So, and that's, so now the money you're using, that's, it's still being used. You have not utilized that. You won't utilize until June, end of June.
I may have been incorrect in what I said. The money was used this school year, which is the 2018, 2019.
Okay, all right, that's, okay, somehow I missed that.
I know, that may have been my mistake. The
Okay.
data that you see, we always trail in our data. So when we collect data, so the 17, 18 is for the data that we collect.
Okay, all right, that's what, I thought I heard that, okay. Okay. All right, now, and this is for you, Mr. Manager. Again, this is the reasons we can fund school activities is different because of General Assembly. So if we decide that for the purpose of extending the program on a one-time basis at this point, what would be the need of changing our budget? Why could we not just go into our reserves and
It would
do
be
that?
considered a continuing program. If it's one and done, it's one and done. But if it's being funded a second year or second time, then that would be a continuation. So looking at local government commission principles and GFOA requirements, we would be obligated to treat this as a reoccurring expense and match up reoccurring revenues to offset that. So, which would trip or require us to reduce proposed expenditures by an equivalent amount.
No, but the first time we did it, it was not for this purpose. The first expenditure we made to them was not for this purpose. This is really the first time that we would be making an expenditure for this purpose here. So what I'm asking is, why could we not just decide, all right, we're going to give you the seed money. It's not something that we're going to commit to. We're just going to give you one-time contribution because we see the need for it, and not commit to recurring expense for the nurses.
It appears it's a recurring.
Well, if we make the decision that we're not going to commit to it for recurring, we're just going to do a one-time contribution.
I think the local government commission would look at the behavior and the performance and a repetitive funding.
Well, I have to agree with Billy here. I mean, it's still, if we approve this tonight, we still have the option next year of not approving it.
Right.
I mean, it's still council's decision each year what we do in our budget. So I don't see that because we approved it tonight, it obligates us automatically to approve it next year.
I'm not saying it obligates you, I'm saying how it's treated from an accounting principle standpoint. It would be perceived and treated as a recurring expense, which we would need to treat it, we would need to match up a recurring revenue with.
When do you have to have a decision on this?
That, Mr. Jordan, that's whenever you can. We would appreciate it.
Mayor, it appears to me that there needs to be further discussion that should not be in front of an audience that,
Okay, I was about to make that motion that we table it for further discussion, and then we get all of the legalities out of the way.
Is there any way that we can form a committee to meet and have a discussion with the school board to see how the monies could be allocated and what?
I
that
think
number
all of
looks
us
like?
need to hear.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
we all need to hear.
my thinking is, and I'm a councilman with good intentions, and Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. Everything you said, Mr. McCraw, is spot on. There's a need, but every person that lives in the city of Monroe is paying Union County taxes to fund the schools. I can't look at programs the city needs, and we can't fund them because funds are being diverted to this program. So, and I'm, misunderstand me, I'm not saying it's not great and the nurses are doing a super job. There is a need. I think the advocates and the advocacy needs to go to the school board, not to the Monroe City Council.
I have a motion on the floor.
All right.
Madam, I would ask that you please also set a date certain for when it would return back to the council. If you intend for it to come back at the June meeting or the July meeting.
Did the July meeting give us enough time to really investigate?
I'll entertain your motion. What is your motion?
My motion is that we table this until we have all the necessary information and work the legalities out so we can make an informed decision.
Okay, I have a
To
motion.
the July,
For the July meeting, yes.
well, if it's at the July 16th meeting, would that not be beyond our budget adoption? And would it not be beyond, you operate on fiscal year as well?
It would be beyond our budget.
Yeah.
Let's do a special meeting.
Well, if we could still do it, we could do it at our June meeting.
We can do that June meeting. I don't have enough opposition to that.
And that was your motion. I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion, a second, and it's the June meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it will be coming up to the June meeting.
And I wanted to just make one other comment, Mayor. If we were still the Monroe City school system, this would be a no-brainer for us. We always took care of our needed students when we were in Monroe school system. And we're not in Monroe school system anymore.
Right.
So
I understand.
thank you for what you're trying to do
Thank
for
you.
our students.
Thank you.
Okay, this will come up. Thank you, Mr. McGraw.
If you'll please excuse me, I've got to go to our board meeting now, Mayor.
Very good.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. McCraw.
Okay, at this time, we'll do the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. City Council uses the consent agenda to consider items that are non-controversial and routine. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a council member or citizen with the consent of council. The consent agenda contains the following items. Item 4 is for the purpose of approving the budget ordinance for the change order number 1 to the paving contract with Lynch's River Contracting in the amount of $52,227 for the repair of asphalt at the City Operations Center located at 2401 Walkup Avenue. Item 5 is for the purpose of honoring retiring police officer Chris Carrion by awarding him the service sidearm in appreciation for his service as a police officer to the City of Monroe. Item 6 is for the purpose of approving 4 sets of budget amendments. The first is in the amount of $76,485 to procure hardware and software improvements for use in tracking all of the airport's business, including fuel inventory. The second of 4 is to accept 2 donations, $100 from Cornerstone Property Owners Association and $220 from Union County Association of Realtors for use with the community room at Fire Station 4. The third is to accept $4,000 donation from Walmart for youth programs in the police department. And the fourth is to accept a $24,011 amount as reimbursement from the Drug Enforcement Administration for overtime pay for officers working in special task forces. Item 7, for the purpose of calling 2 public hearings to be held on June 4th at 6 p.m. First is for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. The second is to hear a request to rezone property located along West Crowell Street, North Charlotte Avenue, and West Jefferson Street from General Industrial to Central Business District. Item 8 is for the purpose of approving the Charlotte Avenue widening project elements that involve a change to the proposed cross-section involving a pedestrian and bicycle enhancements from Seymour Street to NC 200, and second, a proposed revision to the City of Monroe standard specifications and detail manual for an estimated cost share of $193,000 by the City of Monroe for the described pedestrian improvements. Item 9 involves minutes and reports lettered A through K. Item 9A involves disbursements from City Council's discretionary funds. And there are 4 sets of disbursements. The first is Mayor Bobby Kilgore dispersed funds to the Union County Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $20. Mayor Pro Tem Gary Anderson dispersed funds to the Hospice of Union County in the amount of $285. Councilmember Saluda Anthony had 2 disbursements, first of which the Union County Community Arts Council in the amount of $50 and Union Crisis Assistance Ministry in the amount of $40. And Councilmember Franco McGee had 2 sets of disbursements, the first of which was to Benton Heights Elementary School of Arts Leadership Night in the amount of $268.55. And secondly, the Union County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Golf Tournament fundraiser for scholarships in the amount of $500. Item 9B is financial reports for April 2019, and as a summary, I'll highlight several fund balance amounts. The total fund balance is at $28,563,016. A few subsets of total fund balance, and there are 3 that I'll highlight, is the fund balance reserved by policy, which is $10,106,092. The unassigned general fund balance is $5 million and change. The total assigned fund balance is $2.1 million. There are 10 sets of minutes lettered 9C through J. Item 9K is summary of contracts awarded, change orders approved, and city manager's settlement of claims. There are 22 contracts for the period totaling $338,000 in change, and there were no claims settled during the period. Item 10 is for the purpose of approving the execution of the annual agreement for the North Carolina Main Street designation with the North Carolina Main Street Rural Planning Center. Item 11 is for the purpose of approving grant application in the amount of $1,750 and its submittal to Omnova. The grant proceeds would be used to purchase fire safety education and prevention material equipment and to send a person to the Union County Leadership Union Program. Item 12 is for the purpose of adopting or amending 3 sets of ordinances. The first is to amend Chapter 75, Traffic Schedule 1B, speed limits, to reduce the speed limit on Dover Street and Dover Place from 35 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. The second is to adopt the fiscal year 2019-2020 fee schedule and for it to be made effective July 1st, 2019. The third is to adopt the 24th supplement of the City of Monroe Code of Ordinances. The supplement is prepared on an annual basis and includes all ordinances adopted by City Council through December 31st, 2018. Item 13 is for the purpose of approving the fiscal year 2019 equipment installment financing instrument with Zions Bank Corporation for $635,000 in installment financing. Item 14 is for the purpose of awarding a bid to Municipal Emergency Services to purchase 55 self-contained breathing apparatus and assorted system parts and upgrades for a total cost of $479,608. Item 15 is for the purpose of approving tax releases for the month of March in the amount of $620.23 that were created by a change or reduction in value by the City of Monroe's for the City of Monroe by the Union County Tax Assessor. And item 16 is for the purpose of approving the fee waiver request by Union Anson County Habitat for Humanity in an amount of $12,533 and to adopt a budget amendment in the amount of $3,721 to cover the distribution of those funds to support 2 new homes, one of which is on Sykes Street, the other on Citrus Drive. Mayor, members of the council, that concludes my summary of items placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, council have any questions? Not, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, have a second. Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that'll pass. We'll go into our regular agenda meeting at this time. Item 17, zoning map amendment request to rezone property located near the intersection John Moore Road, Hickory Grove Road, conditional district.
Good evening, I'm Carrie Mendler with the Planning Department. Tonight I'm presenting a zoning map and text amendment request for the property located at the corner of John Moore Road and Hickory Grove Drive. This item was tabled at the April 2nd, 2019 meeting in order to allow for neighbors, the applicant, and a few city council members to meet and discuss the concerns with the proposal. Just to orient you to the site, it is north of Hickory Grove Drive, east of John Moore Road, and then up here to the north is Highway 74. As a reminder, the previous conditional district was approved in October 2018. However, once the project was in the engineering phase, it was determined that the proposed sand filter for stormwater purposes was not going to work for this site. Since there was a note specifically on the original plan regarding the sand filter, the applicant must seek approval for the modification. Additionally, the applicant has requested a reduction in the approved heated square feet from 1,800 square feet to 1,400 square feet. And the applicant has also submitted additional elevations for consideration, and the homes must still meet the exterior material requirements as previously approved. The subject property is highlighted in blue. It is currently zoned conditional district Dogwood Forest, and the adjoining properties are all zoned R20. As a reminder, the property is 7.52 acres. The applicant is proposing 21 single-family homes and for a density of 2.79 units per acre, and the development will have just over 2 acres of open space. As discussed, the previous approval had specified that stand filters would be used for stormwater management. Once the project was in the engineering phase, it was determined that sand filters would not work. A revised note has been added to state that the detention and water quality basins will be an approved stormwater control measure. If the project is approved by City Council, the stormwater will be evaluated and reviewed at the building permit stage of the process. The developer is proposing homes with a minimum of 1,400 square feet. The original conditional district was approved for a minimum house size of 1,800 square feet. This does appear to be more in line with the surrounding home sizes. And the proposed exterior building materials will include fiber cement, stone, stucco, brick, and/or vinyl. If vinyl is used, it must be a high-quality vinyl that is at least 0.044 inches thick. The vinyl must also have backing material, must be heat resistant with UV reflective additives, and must be wind resistant. If vinyl is used, 25% of the front facade must include fiber cement, brick, stone, or stucco. Each home will have a 2-car garage that will have ornamentation and/or windows or other detailing such as hardware to mimic the carriage-style garage. And each driveway will be paved with concrete and will be able to accommodate at least 2 vehicles. As mentioned, the applicant did submit additional elevations for your consideration. These top 2 were part of the original approval, and then these bottom 4 are additional elevations for your consideration tonight. As far as the neighborhood notification, staff did post the property and sent letters to the property owners within at least 150 feet of the subject property 10 days prior to the public hearing back in April, and the property has been posted since that meeting as well. The land development plan indicates this area is suburban. Residential uses typically take the form of neighborhoods with uniform housing types and densities. A mix of housing types and lot sizes is preferred in suburban locations, and the density for suburban residential is 2 to 4 units per acre. This project is consistent with the land development plan. As mentioned, this request was presented at the April 2nd, 2019 City Council meeting. After hearing that the applicant did not reach out to the neighbors prior to the April 2nd meeting, City Council tabled this request until the May 7th meeting in order to meet with neighbors, planning staff, and engineering staff to discuss the concerns of the neighborhood. Planning staff did hold a meeting on April 22nd, 2019, with 5 of the residents in the area and 2 council members, Councilwoman Serluda Anthony and Councilmember Lynn Keziah. Jim Lloyd, the engineering director, and Chris Costner with the Stormwater Division were also present to provide technical knowledge on the stormwater aspect of the project, and the applicant and his engineers were present to answer any questions as well. At this meeting, there was discussion on having the applicant and developer work with the state to introduce a specific fish species to the stormwater ponds to help address concerns with mosquitoes. Additionally, there was a discussion on installing Leland cypress trees along the perimeter to create a privacy wall between the Valleydale Road residents and the stormwater ponds for this development. The neighbors did seem receptive to the proposed solutions outlined in the meeting regarding the stormwater issues and the privacy concerns. Just to recap, the applicant is seeking approval to use a different form of stormwater detention, which will be reviewed and approved during the permitting phase. Additionally, he's seeking approval to reduce the heated floor area of the homes from 1,800 square feet to 1,400 square feet. The planning board did unanimously recommend approval of the rezoning, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant and his engineer are here as well.
What was it? I just heard you say 1,400, 1,800. What was that comment about the 1,100 square feet?
The original approval back in October of 2018 was for 1,800 square feet. The applicant is requesting a reduction down to 1,400 square feet, which does appear to be in line with the adjoining properties in the area.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? How did the neighborhood meeting go? I heard you spoke on it for a little bit. Did you go to that meeting?
Yes, yeah, it did. The neighbors seemed receptive to the suggestions, and then of course at the meeting they brought up the possibility of having fish species introduced to the ponds once they're complete. There's a specific type of fish that I guess eats the mosquito larvae to help that control that potential. And then there was also discussion about installing Leland cypress around the property so that it creates more of a wall, if you will, a privacy wall to prevent mosquitoes flying or blowing in the wind to those properties on Valleydale, and also just to give them some more privacy to the development.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Council? Thank you very much. This is a public hearing, and I have a couple signed up. At this time, I recognize Ms. Brenda Hamilton. You can hold it for 3 minutes, we'd be great.
My name is Brenda Hamilton, and I live at 3209 Valleydale Road, Monroe, NC, which is on the street next to this area that's being developed. I think I have more questions than anything. I want to know, has the plan changed since it had changed twice before? Has the plan changed again? Is it still what we discussed in the meeting? 2, what is the distance of the ponds will be from our property lines? I mean, this is not something that I relish the idea of water ponds in my backyard. I have concern that the ponds will not be fenced. There are small children in our neighborhood. These are going to be attractive nuisance. And I am very concerned that a child will drown in these things. Also, I'm concerned about the mosquitoes. I think that if we would do an irrigation type thing to keep the water moving, and what the environmental group says will help prevent the mosquitoes from laying their larva eggs and them hatching. I'm concerned about the drainage of the water. We started talking about first that these ponds will be separate and they will drain 2 different ways. The last meeting we had, the ponds were going to drain towards each other, or the top one was going to drain towards the lower one, which is behind my house. Then that was going to drain across Valleydale Road and go over into my property there. And then it's going to drain across, I think, to John Moore Road. I don't have a solution to all those, but what's going to happen with all that water when it gets across John Moore Road? I looked this weekend and there were puddles of water standing everywhere on the people that were across John Moore Road in that very flat area. If the water drains there, you know, how are we going to keep it moving? I don't need a place where I have a swamp on my property because my homeowner's policy and insurer has told me you cannot have that or we will not insure you. So I got a problem with that. And what changes we have talked about, will they be completed, the drainage, etc., before this project gets started? Because the city came out and did work. And the last thing we heard at that meeting was, wait a minute, we got to go back and do more things now. So I have more questions than, it's not that I'm so much against it, just answer my questions.
On us.
Okay, I'll get this. Okay, we're going to work on those just a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
We'll come back to that, Ms. Hamilton. Okay. I also have Daniel. Yes, sir. We recognize you at this time, sir.
I'm Daniel Bothan. I live at 3205 Valleydale Road. And I guess just two quick things. First is in the meeting on the 22nd, from what I understood, is that the 2 ponds would drain separate. And that the 1 pond would drain by, there's a little ravine that's by our property, 3205. And I guess my question, and I just want confirmation, is, I mean, Chris Costner talked to us and he made it sound like, okay, that the developer, he was going to ask the developer to dig out that trench more because the trench kind of ends halfway back. And so what I understood was either the city or the developer, I just want to make sure that one of them digs out the ditch, because if you're going to drain the water, you got to have the ditch wider to drain it. And then the other one was for when that water drains, it'll drain across the street into that property that's across the street. And I guess when I talked to my neighbor, Roland Martin, who lives across the street, he was also at the meeting on the 22nd. He had concerns about the water, the volume of water that may be draining into that property across the street, and he wanted to make sure it wouldn't be a swamp, I guess. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone here, anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Is anyone here who would like to speak in favor? Yes, sir, if you will come, your name and address to the, before we have it on the record, sir.
Yes,
Are you the builder, sir?
I am the engineer for the applicant.
The engineer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it may be, you can answer some of these questions, we'll be coming to it in just a minute, or whoever.
Okay. Shall I wait a moment?
No, if you give me your name for the clerk.
Very good. My name is John Ross. I'm the president of Eagle Engineering, 2013A Van Buren Avenue and Indian Trail. Thank you for allowing us some time this evening to talk through the questions. And yes, these are the questions that came up at the meeting back on the 22nd. The site was rezoned back in 2018. Beyond that rezoning, our firm was employed to take the design that was created the site plan at that time and then advance it into the construction documents, meaning grading plans, drainage, erosion control, street plan profiles, utility plan profiles. And it's that time that we got into the detailed design of the water quality features on this site. The plan that was approved had a specific note, a zoning condition that said water quality would be achieved using a BMP method called sand filters. Doing our engineering due diligence, we went to the site, we did some hand-auger work to find where the seasonal high groundwater table is, because that's a key element in designing a sand filter. What we found was the groundwater at the site was less than a foot in the two locations where the ponds were to be located, which eliminates the possibility of doing a sand filter. The groundwater is too high. We have to, by the state requirements, we would have to elevate the site to a point that it's not even practical. So what we did was we reached out to the town staff with the request, can we modify, we felt it was a fairly minor change, but because it was a note, and we certainly respect that, because it was a specific note on the plan that it would be a sand filter, then we were asked to come back. I think that there was actually a legal review, a town attorney review of that matter. So that is why we came back to the council for this modification. What we have done, we are requesting that the language, the text be changed to say that a method approved by the state BMP manual. What we're designing are actually 2 wet ponds for the site, as Ms. Mindler has presented. We feel that these changes will result in a couple very positive changes. One, that the site will be developed, that these ponds will actually serve as an amenity to the site. They will still meet all the standards of the city and of the state. Detailed plans will be submitted to town engineering, through town planning, through the town zoning. So these ponds will actually reduce the amount of water that the downstream neighbors see today. Okay? We are not increasing the amount of water that leaves our site. The peak water is actually curbed, and it's released at a much slower rate than the downstream neighbors currently see today. We do understand the town has done some improvements downstream. At the neighborhood meeting discussions that we had, Mr. Costner and Mr. Lloyd presented the number of items that have been done downstream. They also presented the fact that they're doing their best to resolve any other outstanding issues. We don't have the right to be on the downstream neighbors' properties. If we can work with anybody downstream to help do a minor grading of a ditch or a swell through their property that is already an issue, I'm sure the developer would be more than willing to do that. We would commit that if there's a shaping of the natural swell that is between 2 houses now, I'm sure that would be an easy issue to agree to. We believe it's a better solution. So there were some specific questions that were asked. Has the plan changed from what was presented on the 22nd? No, still 2 ponds, still both draining at the exact same points that they naturally discharge from the site. The distance from the pond to the adjoining property, within the setbacks, within landscape buffers, the actual water body, my best guess is probably 30 feet from the downstream property line. Will the ponds be fenced? No, that was an item that we discussed. Our goal, again, is to protect them with a very heavy landscape buffer around the site using Leland cypresses, and also to maintain the vistas on the site so that the ponds serve as more of an amenity for the residents of the site. The mosquitoes we addressed with the idea that there are state-supported species of fish specific to this application that would help control mosquitoes. And then I think the other question was what effects on downstream property. Again, we are not increasing the amount. These ponds are sized so that even up to the 100-year storm, there's not an increase of runoff from this site. The peak discharge is less than what these sites would see today, even up to a 100-year design storm. I would be glad to answer any technical questions you have, or if there's more discussion that we need to come back up, I would be glad to.
Thank you, sir. Some of the questions, Ms. Hamilton, I heard some of the questions answered by what you had. Do you have specifics that you would like to ask?
Well, my concern is the ponds. My concern is the water draining across Valleydale Road onto my properties and whether it's going to run off and across John Moore Road without flooding that area. I still have concerns about the mosquitoes. I have a high allergy to mosquitoes. In the summertime, you see me outside. I'm clothed from here down to my boots and my socks. I can't afford to have these things near my house. I've gone around, I've cleaned up my house, I've taken care of things, I've taken care of the water in my yard. I'm real concerned about it. Who's going to cover my bills? Are you, Mr. Engineer?
Am I going to cover your
My
bills?
medical bills?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
Any other questions of him?
No, because I don't think it's going to do a whole lot of good.
Well, you get your answers.
Well, I am, but I'm not. They're not going to do anything about the water standing in the pond. Water's going to be 5 feet deep, right?
Yes, ma'am.
There's
That's a
going to be
good
no
depth for a healthy
protection
pond, isn't it?
around those ponds to keep children out. There are children in our neighborhood. You're going to have a drowning. There's been drownings in all of these things. And the mosquitoes are bad, and it gets yucky. It doesn't get cleaned out maybe once a year. How are you going to keep it clean? Rats, snakes, everything.
Thank you for bringing that up. There is an annual inspection required, by the way. When these ponds, they will ultimately be turned over to the HOA. All state BMPs do require an annual inspection. The city engineering requires annual inspections on the pond. So there'll be a photographic record, a visual walk of the site, documentation submitted for stormwater management records on the site. So if there's an issue, the town holds a bond if for some reason the HOA can't cover it. But it is to be in the HOA budget to maintain these ponds as they would need to be. The reason for a 5-foot depth is because that's a healthy depth of a pond to support aquatic life, to support fish life.
Question, you mentioned about the state stocking the pond with a type of fish that will eat the mosquito larvae, but are you committing to do that?
Yes.
You are committing to do that?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. And also committing to the Leland cypress buffer around. That was another request from the neighborhood meeting.
Okay, you also mentioned that you'd be willing to help neighbors if they needed to build up an upgrade or something to take care of the floor water. Are you committing to that?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. The downstream shaping of the ditch downstream through the neighbor properties?
You'd be willing to
Yes.
help neighbors if they needed?
Yes, ma'am. There were 2 specific instances where they said that their ditch in their yard tends to hold water. This is between the site and Valleydale Road downstream.
Are you committing to help those neighbors do something to keep the water from building up or standing?
Yes, ma'am.
You are committing to that? Will that be in the contract?
Yeah, there is that, I'm the property owner and developer. Yeah, there is that one ditch that runs in between your house. And yeah, we know it stops, and we were planning on, even though the water's gonna be less going out through that, but we do want it to flow. So we will make sure that the grade works properly and that it does flow, but it will be a lot less than comes out of there now. So yes, ma'am, we're committed.
Asking the neighbors with those 2 commitments, are you resting a little easier? With the 2 commitments that they will actually get the pond stocked with larva eating for the mosquitoes, and committing to help the neighbors do something so the water won't accumulate in their yards?
There's also a house on the, if you're facing my house, it's on the right. And there is a very shallow ditch, and the water stands in that area, and it will back up to the people that live next door to me. They have already had water backing into and under their house to the point they've had to replace the furnace. Is that one going to be included?
Is that one in the right of way? Is that the small ditches in the right of way out there on the road? Did they, I thought, they fixed that on the last go around when they resized the
No,
pipes?
they did not.
They didn't touch that?
They stopped right in front of my house with the pipes.
There are 2 locations that we will discharge water from the site, the 2 natural locations that they occur now. So what we're committing to is that between the site and the downstream road, we will make sure that those flow into the public right-of-way. That's the one gap that's between public water to private water to public water. We're working to correct that at those 2 locations.
What consideration is being done for maybe aeration to keep the water moving that tends to keep mosquitoes away, doesn't it?
And that tends to be a very long-term maintenance problem, and I can attest to that. I have that in a county park across the street from my house where the county came out, committed, put a fountain in a county park, and it works just very sporadically at best. It becomes a maintenance nightmare. It would become a long-term expense for the HOA to try to maintain that, and we've not seen that it has any effective effect on the mosquito population.
In a minute, 1 minute. No. I'll give you an opportunity. Okay, any other questions? Well, here, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be glad to answer anything else.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is anyone else who'd like to speak in favor? Ms. Loretta, if you would come to the podium, please.
It just dawned on me that there are natural solutions to mosquito problems. I can't think of the species of birds, but you see the bird houses for this. Does anybody remember? Martins, yes. Martins and bats. Now, I don't know about bat houses, but truly, you can put up bat houses, you can put up martin houses, and it's, it's not the perfect solution, but it's a piece of the solution. So I just wanted to throw that in while I thought about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Here's a public hearing. Is anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing to take action.
Mayor, I make a motion to adopt a resolution approving land development plan compliance.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.106 of Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passed.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending section 15698 of the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass.
And one other thing is that the comments he made about approving the flow of water will be part of this ordinance or amendments, what we're talking about.
Okay,
In other words, what he promised, which I know he doesn't have a problem with, will go into the record going
Exactly.
forward.
Okay. Another part, motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.98 of the Code of Ordinances.
I believe you already did.
We did that one?
It doesn't.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all of that one. Okay, that will pass.
Mayor, I'd just like to say, I really appreciate our staff, our stormwater staff and our engineering staff for all of the work they did whenever this proposal was first made to us, and we denied it because of their hard work and because of the efforts they put in trying to work with the developer and trying to work with the residents. It's not perfect, but it's got us to a point where we can at least work with the developer to try to encourage development in the city.
And I appreciate the citizens standing up to be heard, to ask questions. I appreciate the builder agreeing to come to meet, to come to a general consensus.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll go to item 18, annexation and a zoning map amendment for 71.845 acres on the eastern side of Sickers Shortcut Road and Follow Sickers. Resolved Union County R40 to conditional district Simpson Farm. It is a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mayor, just make sure it's 2 agenda items, but I'm gonna do one presentation. So it's gonna be this annexation and rezone, but I'm just gonna do one presentation for the whole entire project. Good evening. This is the annexation, zoning map, and zoning text amendment request by Caprock Investments for the property located at the intersection of Secret Shortcut and Fowler Road. The applicant is requesting an annexation and conditional district rezoning in order to develop 194 single-family residential lots The total area being annexed is 71.84 acres. Subject property is outlined in blue, is located along Secret Shortcut and also Fowler Road. They are developing both the north side and the south side of the properties. Again, the property is outlined in blue. The subject property is currently zoned RA40 in Union County, as well as all the adjacent properties. They're also RA40 in Union County. This site plan, I'll just kind of go through a few points now. The applicant requests a conditional district in order to develop 194 single-family residential lots with approximately 20 acres of open space. The single-family detached homes will have lot sizes ranging from 6,500 square feet to 14,200 square feet. The overall density for the project is 2.7 units per acre. The applicant is proposing a 20-foot front setback for the homes, 10-foot side, and a 25-foot rear. As far as landscaping and buffering goes, all single-family homes will have solid front yards prior to issuance of CO. The applicant is proposing for each lot to have at least 2 trees planted per yard, as well as street trees provided throughout the development. Additionally, the applicant will be installing a buffer along Secret Shortcut and Fowler Road to just reduce those lots that back up to it from the visual obstruction from backing up to Secret Shortcut as well as Fowler Road. And also, they'll be installing a buffer because it is adjacent to the Monroe Expressway to the far north, this location right here. So they'll be doing some buffer areas there to help buffer the lots from the view of the expressway. Open space, the project is required to provide at least 12.5% open space, which would equate to 9 acres. The applicant is providing 28% or 20 acres. They're providing 2 areas. Since the project is bisected by Fowler Road, they're providing a gazebo, fire pit, and grill areas and dog park. They're providing one at this location here to the far north. And this would be the area north of Fowler Road, and they're also going to provide one here on the southern portion of Fowler Road, here at the intersection of Fowler Secrets and Secret Shortcut. Each single-family home will have a 2-car garage and a paved driveway that will accommodate at least 2 vehicles in addition to the garage space. As far as school, the project does fall within the Porter Ridge Elementary and Piedmont Middle and Piedmont High school area attendance zones. Sidewalk, developers proposing 5-foot sidewalks on all the interior streets, as well as 8-foot sidewalk along Secret Shortcut and both sides of Fowler Road. There's approximately 10.3 acres of floodplain within the project, which would be reserved for open space and not be developed. There's also streams within this portion which provide a 50-foot undisturbed buffer, which is required by the ordinance. As far as stormwater, the applicant will be required to provide stormwater management to treat the stormwater runoff for the project. Stormwater will be reviewed and approved at the time of permitting. Transportation improvements, as you can see, they have access at this location here along the southern portion, and also they have access here on the northern portion. Both these access will be improved with a left turn lane on Secret Shortcut. There was a traffic study that was performed by the developer that was reviewed by the city engineer department as well as DOT. And what came out of that was turn lanes at both these locations. There will not be turn lanes on Fowler Road, but they'll have access points directly across from each other on Fowler Road. The developer is proposing the exterior building materials will include brick, stone, and fiber cement. The only vinyl to be utilized will be for trim work. The developer is proposing for the front facade to consist of a combination of brick, stone, or accent siding elements, fiber cement. The home's constructed on slab foundations and will provide a minimum of 4 courses of the brick veneer along the foundation. Garages will include carriage-styled hardware. The minimum heated square footage of the homes will be 1,440 square feet. And these are examples of the proposed elevations.
What size did you say the homes were?
The minimum is 1,440. I mean, I think, and developers speak more than us can, their intent is to build larger than 1440, but I think they have a base elevation that goes as low as 1440.
Planning board recommended.
Yes, they did. Just go over to land development consistency statement, which comes out of the long-range plan. This area is projected for rural residential, which projects 1 to 2 units per acre. The project is at 2.7 units per acre, so the density of the project exceeds what's in the comprehensive plan. But staff believes it's a reasonable use based on the subject properties are located in close proximity to the Monroe Expressway. It's also adjacent to the suburban land use category, which allows 2 to 4 units per acre. And the project is located within a mile of the regional node land use, which is located at Concord Highway and Ridge Road. And finally, the regional mixed-use node are designed to attract people beyond Monroe for shopping, entertainment, and employment. So it does go beyond the limits for the rural classification, but staff does believe it's a reasonable use based on those 4 reasons. As far as, since this is an annexation, staff did route to the various departments to see what type of impact it would have, and as reported by all the departments, there would be no immediate impact on the operating budgets for the city of Monroe. The planning board didn't recommend approval of the project, unanimous approval. Staff did, the developer did hold a neighborhood meeting on March 20th when there was approximately about 10 people that was in attendance at the meeting, and they pitched their idea, and there was some concerns mentioned at the meeting, and I'll touch on those. Some of the concerns mentioned were that the homes are going to be starter homes, and these were concerns raised by the residents. The homes will be starter homes, the additional traffic on Secret Shortcut, the people in the neighborhood that might be riding four-wheelers on the adjacent properties, as well as the small size homes. And as far as there was some consensus that some of the people would like the lots to be larger, like 1 acre size lots. Staff did notify the properties within 250 feet of the property. There was 28 letters we sent out, as well as posting the property at least 10 days prior to the meeting. And as stated, the planning board does recommend approval of it. I'll be glad to answer any questions at this time if you have any of me.
What's staff's opinion? Did you say that a while ago?
I did not. Staff recommended approval of the project at plant board.
What's the price range of the houses?
The developer probably better answer that now I can.
Any more questions, Doug? Thank you, Doug.
Okay.
Good, okay.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and I have a few people signed up, and I'll take them in order as they signed. The first one signed D.A. Davis. Would you like to speak, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. This project is, first of all, is absolutely not a starter home community. The builder, the lowest price unit they have on their scale will start at $249,900. It would go from there up to $300,000 plus $1,000, so that eliminates that question. And I really want to thank the zoning, planning staff. They worked very hard with us on this project. We're trying to follow their guidelines. The other thing is that there will be absolutely no vinyl on the exterior of these houses. It was made crystal clear to me that if I came in with vinyl, don't even come in the door, because we're going to send you back out. So it's all hard surface, stucco, brick, and stone. The community, I'm proud of it. I've lived in Union County. I was raised in Wingate. I lived in Monroe all my life. We moved briefly to South Carolina when the process of getting back up here, but nevertheless, I'm very proud. I love Union County, and I love Monroe. This is a community we're going to all be proud of when it's finished. The projects that we do, we set up with NBR and Ryan Homes. The landscaping is immaculate. It will be taken care of by the HOA and monitored by the Homeowners Association. So, other than all I know to say is it's a good project. I'm very proud of it. We're looking forward to developing it. If you got any questions.
Any question, Mr. Davis? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Mark Mahoney, I believe, sir?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Mark Mahoney with Caprock Investments, representing the developer. Happy to answer any questions. Again, reiterating what Mr. Davis said, staff and planning has been excellent to work with. The community involvement's been good. We feel we've responded to their concerns, and again, hope we're delivering a project that everyone's excited about and should be very successful. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. I also have Sarah. Am I saying it? Shirley, am I saying that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sarah Shirley. That's my name. The first
Good.
time.
Just didn't want to mispronounce it.
Thank you. I am the landscape architect representing the developer for the project, so I'm here to answer any technical questions if anybody has any. And I've got a rendering that I wanted to bring up and have, just in case anybody had any questions. But just to reiterate what Mr. Mahoney and Mr. Davis said, we're very proud of this project. We've worked pretty hard on it for a pretty long time, and we're just excited to get started.
Okay, council have any questions, Ms. Shirley? All right, enough. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is anyone else here who would like to speak in favor? Is anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? If you would come to the podium, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Tim Edwards, 921 Fowler Road.
Okay.
And I appreciate you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm gonna borrow your map. I have land that adjoins up to this property. And some of the concerns, there's quite a few. One is at the intersection of Secret Shortcut and Fowler Road. There's several accidents per month at that very intersection. People are trying to pull out onto Secret Shortcut. Tonight, when I was coming over here, I sat there for 4.5 minutes. I just timed it for the fun of it, but for 4.5 minutes just to get out on Secret Shortcut. With Expressway, now going, seems like more traffic is coming off of Rocky River onto Secret Shortcut and coming on into Monroe. Excuse me. And so, like I say, the concerns with the traffic, I think that it's only going to take and worsen considerably. As far as the impact on the school systems, we talked, the builder was talking about going into Porter Ridge and Piedmont Middle. Porter Ridge is already at maximum capacity. You already have trailer units already out there, and the infrastructure is not there to accommodate, these size homes. And then someone else mentioned earlier tonight about the taxes and the school taxes. I think all of us, if we look at our county tax bill, when we look at how much we're paying for school taxes, this is only going to continue to go up as far as having to pay more and more money for school taxes. One of the big concerns I have is the stormwater runoff. I know we talk about the holding ponds and so forth. My property is, and actually, this is my home right here. This is Stewart's Fork Creek that comes down through this way, and Stewart's Creek actually feeds into Lake Twitty. I've lived at this home for 32 years now, and when Hurricane Hugo came through, Fowler Road, water went over the top of Fowler Road. And that was the last time that had happened until last year, this past year. And one of the things that's happened with the expressway coming through, the water has been redirected to where there's a tremendous amount more water coming down Stewart's Creek. And what that does to me is, it actually floods my property very badly. The water this spring come all the way up into this area right here, and was actually, I waded across it and I was almost thigh deep going over my driveway. And when Hugo come through, the water was still 15 foot from my driveway. So the bypass has already shedded water towards my property. And now with this water, with this proposed development, it's also going to have some of the similar issues, because I think it's going to only worsen it. And it's also going to go on downstream. Like I say, the stormwater runoff is something that I think really needs to be looked at very, very carefully. And basically, that's it. I must say that the stormwater, the traffic, the schools, you know, and I wish that I had taken the time to try to get someone to give me a report saying how many accidents was at the intersection of Fowler Road and Secret Shortcut. But I know the Belts that lives right across the road, they have people that goes to their yard quite often. There's been fire hydrants knocked down, and this is only going to worsen. It's only going to worsen, and it's not going to take not going to go away. The turning lanes, it's not going to help. You're just sitting there and having to wait for traffic on Secret Shortcut. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? If you would like to come to,
Not in opposition, but I have.
if you'd like to speak, come right up.
Name is Michelle King, 802 East Franklin Street. My question is, when I saw the rendering, I'm all for progress. Certainly, we want people to come and live here and play here and have, you know, be part of Monroe. My question is, though, why the land development plan? Why is there a, what's the reason for wanting to do the 2.7 instead of the 1.2 that's proposed? That wasn't very clear to me as to why we would get away from the actual land development plan that's already in place. So maybe there's a question. And also, the buffer between the houses is quite interesting. Are these going to be fenced in? Will you do landscape architecture to where the houses butt up against each other? Will be some type of barrier or shrubbery? So that's kind of a question that I would have.
Davis, who can answer that for the lady?
I can help
You can answer that, okay. Ms. King, she's going to answer those questions. If you understood, if you did, she can repeat it for you.
Well, I will ask for clarification for the houses, but the lot sizes are basically driven by the market. The balance that we have by asking for the higher densities, that we're providing a greater amount of open space. So what you do is you start moving towards what's called a cluster subdivision, and it actually helps preserve more open space than if you had large lots. So large lots not only cost more.
Can you put that back up on there where you're talking?
Sure,
I'm a
absolutely.
visual person.
I'll accommodate. So the smaller lots, not only are we finding that people just prefer smaller lots, there's less overall maintenance for the property, that kind of thing, but they also prefer just having more general open space that they don't have to maintain themselves too. So it's a balance of what the market wants, what we're finding consumers want, people moving to homes want, but it also helps preserve more open space. The houses, the buffers between the houses, I'm not sure. Are you talking about between the individual lots?
Sure. Yes, so
What
are those
happens?
homes that are butting against each other, or are those streets there? So yes, exactly.
So I guess I'll orient you to the plan. This is a street,
Correct.
and we've got the street trees, and then we will have lots that abut the rear yards to other lots.
Correct.
So they'll have traditional rear yards. I live in a subdivision in Fort Mill, and basically what we have behind us is we've got our own backyard, and then you usually have, the rear yards are usually used for stormwater, sewer and water utilities, things like that. So you'll have a little bit of a dip and then grade back up to the property behind you. So people can fence their yards in as much as they want. I have a dog, so I let my dog run around in my fenced-in yard. But they can landscape, that kind of thing. It's a big enough yard that you can have a kid run around in, a dog run around in, but not so much that you're spending every weekend out.
Is there a model of this in terms of how the landscaping is? Is there something similar that we could go and look and review?
Like a built
Yes,
neighborhood?
correct. Yes.
The builder that we are using is NVR. Oh, I'm sure.
So the question was, is there a model? Is there something that we could go and see a sample of exactly? Is it like Baxter Village in?
Not as dense as
Okay.
Baxter.
Okay.
Ryan Holmes has a couple different subdivisions around. I'm drawing a blank as to what specific, but right. Glendalough?
I've never heard of that,
Maybe.
but I'll be glad to look that up. Okay, so that would give us an idea as a okay.
Right, exactly.
Okay, perfect.
I hope that answers.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that addressed everything. Okay.
Anyone else got a question? Thank you, Ms. Shirley. Okay, anyone else who would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action.
I move to grant the rezoning request from
No,
Union
ma'am,
County.
ma'am, you need to
B?
start with actually B, which
Okay,
is the
motion-
annexation, because you can't zone this until you've annexed it.
Okay,
from the city.
motion that the petition meets the requirements.
Second.
Okay, motion to adopt.
And
Oh,
then,
we
ma'am,
gotta carry it
I think there was a motion, and there was a second.
We got to take
Mayor
it. All right, I have a
needs to vote.
motion and a second on the annexation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Clerk, I know you got the motion. Did you get the seconder?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Motion to adopt ordinances to extend corporate limits.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on item C. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Hearing none, that'll pass.
Motion to adopt a resolution approving land development plan compliance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any, hearing none, that's passed.
Motion to adopt ordinances amending section 156.106 of the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that'll pass.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.98 of the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass. Okay, that gets it all, don't it? Okay, that's passed. Item 19, annexation and zoning map text amendment 24.85 acres located along Waxhaw Highway, Skywatch Lane to be rezoned from Union County RA20 to conditional district, Alexander Commons. This will be a public hearing also.
Again, this is going to be 2 agenda items, 1 presentation. Good evening. Tonight I'm presenting an annexation, zoning map, and zoning text amendment request by Carolina Development Services, LLC, for the property located along Waxhaw Highway and Skywatch Lane. The applicant is requesting to request an annexation and conditional district rezoning in order to develop 77 single-family residential lots. Total area being annexed and rezoned is 24.8485 acres. According to the site, the subject property is outlined in blue, and it's located to the west of Skywatch Lane. And Skywatch Lane is I guess you can call it the main road that goes into Southwind subdivision. And it's also located to the south of Waxhaw Highway. And then further south is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Subject property is on RA20 in Union County. The properties to the west are on RA20 in Union County as well, and also to the north. And then to the east, which is the city of Monroe city limits, the orange line at this location is on MUSU, which stands for Mixed Use Special Use District, as well as to the property to the south is MUSU. And this is part of the Southwind subdivision, and this is down here at the bottom right here is Lexington Commons. And Walter Pickett Elementary is located here to the further south along MLK. The applicant is requesting an annexation and conditional district rezoning in order to develop 77 single-family residential lots with approximately 6.9 acres of open space. The single-family homes will have lot size ranges from 6,250 square feet to 13,669 square feet. The overall density for the project is 3.5 units per acre. The setbacks proposed for the project is 20-foot front setback, a 10-foot corner lot setback, and a 5-foot side yard setback, and a 25-foot rear yard setback. All homes within the project will have solid front yards. There will be at least one tree
per yard as well as street trees throughout the project. The applicant is providing 6.9 acres or 31.7% of open space. Due to the limited size of the project, the applicant is not proposing any type of amenities within the project. It's just going to be open space, grassed area. Each single-family detached dwelling will have a minimum of a one-car garage and a paved driveway that will accommodate at least 2 vehicles in addition to the garage space. The attendance area for this schools would be Walter Pickett Elementary, Monroe Middle, and Monroe High. The applicant is proposing 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the interior streets, as well as an 8-foot sidewalk that will be located along Waxhaw Highway. All streams within the project will be required to provide a 50-foot undisturbed buffer from the top of the bank on both sides. Stormwater, the applicant will be required to provide stormwater management to treat stormwater runoff as required by the stormwater detail manual, and that will be evaluated if this project is approved by City Council at the building permit stage. As far as transportation, the access to the site will be accessed through within the Southwind subdivision along Skywatch Lane, how you would normally get into there. And I'll put this aerial back up. Currently now, if you were going to Southwind, you would come off Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard because Skywatch Lane does not go all the way to Waxhaw Highway. So this property will be accessed off Skywatch Lane and also off Waxhaw Highway. The DOT did review the project. A traffic impact analysis was not required just based on the number of lots being 77. DOT did require the project based on the intersection of Newtown and Waxhaw Highway for the access point. This project to be at least 600 feet away from that intersection, and they did make that requirement, as well as doing a left turn lane on Waxhaw Highway for access into this project. So that's required and shown on the site plan. The exterior building materials for the project will consist of brick, stone, vinyl of the 0.44 thickness. The developer is proposing the front facade to consist of at least 25% of brick or stone materials, while the sides and rear will be vinyl. The minimum heated square footage as proposed will be 1,600 square feet. The homes constructed on a slab will have a 4-course brick veneer, and garages will include carriage-style hardware. For examples of the homes that's being proposed.
Does it specify what kind of vinyl in there?
They just did the .044, the premium, the thicker vinyl is what they did.
Planning board approved that?
They did, but with some stipulations. I'll get those in 1 second though. The land development consistency statement. This area is projected within the suburban criteria, and which allows 2 to 4 units per acre. This project at 3.5 units per acre does fall within that classification, so it is consistent with the land development plan. And again, since this was an annexation, it was routed, and based on feedback from the departments that was routed to, this project will have no immediate impact on the operating budgets of the city of Monroe. The plan board did recommend approval of the project with the following conditions. An 8-foot sidewalk be required along Waxhaw Highway. And the second stipulation was, is that there were townhomes there at the beginning along Waxhaw Highway, those 25 townhomes. The plan board recommended approval, but for the elimination of the townhomes, and they did eliminate it. They removed 25 townhomes and put 25 single-family homes in place of that. And also, the plan board stipulated that all single-family homes will be required to be furnished with a 2-car garage. Now, since the plan board, the developer did make a few modifications, and I'll go over those. As I said previously, the developer did remove the 25 townhomes and put in place 25 single-family homes. So they met the plan board's recommendation for that. And as far as the garages go, the developer revised the proposal to say that the developer proposing 25% or 19 lots within the project will have an option for a 1-car garage, and the remaining 58 lots will be required to be furnished with a two-car garage. So, but the planning board recommend that all the homes have two-car garages, but the developer, in an attempt to, because basically when staff reviewed it, our recommendation was, when it was the townhomes were going to be one-car garages, and then there was going to be the remaining 77 miles, so it was going to be 52 single-family homes, and staff recommend that of those 52 single-family homes, no more than 25% or 13 lots be one-car garages. And so when they took the townhomes out, basically you had 77 homes, and what they agreed to do was only do 25%, which would have a one-car garage, which would be a total of 19 lots. So what they're proposing,
You go single one-car garage, you're gonna lessen the value of that whole subdivision.
I don't disagree. But developer did, in their attempt trying to make some concessions with what the planning board requested, they're proposing up to 19 one-car garages and 58 two-car garages for the project.
You said they have an option of a one or a two?
Yes, the developer is saying that there will be no more than 19 one-car garages, but for sure there'll be at least 58 two-car garages. And, and he can talk about more than I can, but that's, they were wanting to have the ability to do, based on let the market dictate that, if there was more than half of it have one-car garages, but staff recommend they only to be held to 25%, and the planning board kind of went along with that as well. As far as for tonight's meeting, they did hold a neighborhood meeting, and there was probably about 10 to 15 people that was in attendance at that meeting. And some of the comments came about at that meeting was that there was some concern about the one-car garages for the neighborhood meeting, and that was held back in February. There was some, the lot sizes and the house sizes are very, very similar as far as what the minimum goes. Because the house sizes out there, if you do the average of the homes out there, I think the average in Southwinds is 2,400 square feet, and they are requesting their minimum to be 1,600 square feet, and that's just a minimum. So I mean, obviously, typically a lot of times they do more than the minimum, but that's the minimum request at 1,600. But as far as we did notify 110 people for the night's meeting, as far as our mail out, as well as posted property. And like I said, planning board did recommend approval with those conditions, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any of me, and the developer is here to address you tonight as well.
Okay, any questions, Doug? Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. I have one person signed up, Keith Finn. Am I saying that right, sir?
Good evening. I represent the developer builder. My name is Keith Fenn, and I'm here to answer any questions if anyone has any as far as mayor, council members, or the general public. I do want to reiterate what Doug has mentioned as far as our concessions along the way, trying to kind of appease what planning has produced and recommended, as well as what planning commission has recommended, and taking heed to a lot of those and make adjustments. The one thing that we really want the market to dictate versus either us or the general public is let the market decide whether they want a one-car or two-car garage. So we took on Doug's recommendation of the 25% cap, which we prefer not to have a cap, but we went along with that in the provision of giving at least a two-car concrete pad. So even the one-car garages will still have two-car capability on front of the property. So we're not restricting that at all. So that will be across the board. And that was just kind of our biggest thing, is to have that flexibility.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Finn? No, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Here's a public hearing. Anyone here who'd like to speak in favor? Yes, sir, if you'll come to the podium, sir, please. Name and address for the clerk, please.
My name is Lloyd Trimble. I live at 738 Sinclair Drive in Southwind subdivision next door. And I apologize for not bringing the statistics that I took to the planning meeting with me, but I have a pretty good memory. So first, I want to say absolutely in favor of this property being developed, and we appreciate the efforts that they've made and the changes that they've proposed. The three things that came up in the planning committee that I do have a concern about are the one-car garages. I live in Southwinds. There are 10 homes with one-car garages. That makes up 7% of our neighborhood. They were all built by the first builder, Craft Development. There have been 4 builders since who have all built 2 or 2.5 car garages. So the bulk of our neighborhood does have larger garages. In speaking to some of the owners that live in the 1-car garage homes, most of them said if they had been offered a 2-car, they would have bought it. I do appreciate the percentage requirement that the developer has put out, but I really would like to see 2-car garages in all of the homes. The biggest parking issues that we have in our neighborhood are at the 1-car garage homes where cars tend to stay on the street. The other concern that I have is that Southwinds does have a 2-hour street parking ordinance, which I know we're not to CCNRs yet. But I just want to reiterate that street parking is a concern. There are 7 school buses that come through our neighborhood in the morning and in the afternoon. And on Tuesdays, we have 4 trash trucks on recycling, 3 on non. Those trucks can't get down the roads if there's cars on the roads. And emergency vehicles can't get through the roads if there are cars on the roads. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that, and I think the more parking we can provide off, including garages, the cleaner the neighborhood will look. I have a 2,300 square foot house with a 2.5-car garage that's 550 square feet. I appreciate that extra space, and we park in our garage every night, and most of my neighbors do as well.
Okay.
Anybody have
Any questions? Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Hearing none, is anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir, come to the podium, sir. Mr. Brown, and everybody knows you, but you give your name and address for our clerk, please.
I'm Henry Browning. I live next door to this property at 2401 Waxhaw Highway. The last meeting we had, there was going to be 23 townhomes there, which didn't take up quite as much space. Now when I see this plot, I live just west of this, and my house is right up on the hill from this. When they put in the south winds down there, the water came under Waxhaw Highway and turned and went down across that property, and there was a pond down there where south winds is now. They literally filled in a pond and changed the drainage to put in south winds. What they did, they put the drainage right next door to me. It goes all the way down my property line, and about halfway down my farm, they actually built a little dam down there to keep it from coming to me. So it would go to the creek down there, which actually drains into Bearskin Creek. They have allowed that to grow up now, and when they cleared this property the other day, on the east side of that, on a lot of places, they went down into the ditch cleaning all the way down, and that's, I think, against the EPA rules and regulations on clearing property. I don't think you're supposed to go down into that ditch. And my question is, what are they going to do with that property between me and them? Are they going to leave it as is? Are they going to clean it and redo it, or what's going to happen there? That's, the guy's got his own property. I'm not saying I'm against Bill. I'd rather not be there, just to be honest, but I know he's got a right to do that. But I've been there for 78 years now almost, and I think I've got a few rights too. I would like to see something buffer between me and that property, if at all possible, because that many houses and that many people, there's going to be people, and right beside of me, part of that's been, I've been mowing it and got cleared up to that, and I don't want that to be a walking trail right in my side yard. So I'd like to know what they're going to do with that ditch that they put in there where they alter the water flow that comes through there.
Mr. Finn, could you address that, sir, or will you have someone with you that might could address that question?
I can address that.
If you would, please.
So first of all, we're not in a design phase, we're in a sketch phase, so we don't have any particulars regarding that, but I can speak to the fact that state regulations and Monroe's ordinances require us to maintain certain water quantities that do not go off-site. So anything that is in a controlled manner on our property, we will have something to control water that goes off-site.
Well, this water goes off-site because it goes down to the creek down behind us there.
Right, but anything that's on our property, water that hits our property, we can control.
Yeah,
Anything
but what are you
outside,
going to do with that piece of property between my line and your line? What's going to happen to that greenway you've left? What's going to happen there?
We haven't gotten into the design of that. I can't speak to that at this moment, unfortunately.
In other words, the project's not ready.
I'm sorry.
He hasn't got the project ready. I thought we came to to hear what was gonna be done tonight.
We haven't designed it because we have to get approvals before we go into design. It
Well,
costs a
can
lot
it
of
be
money.
stipulation that they leave that loan and fix that ditch that the developer, the same company owns this, it's always owned, it's just a different builder now, I mean. and-
I don't know if I'm gonna ask the right person, but I'll ask you. Doug, could you address that or give us some kind of answer for Mr. Browning's question, please? I'm not sure who, where to ask you or who.
This greenway right here, see, my house is sitting right here.
Right.
And this is a drainage ditch that goes all the way down to the creek back here.
This will be maintained by the developer. This is gonna be common open space.
That's what I'm saying, what are they gonna do to maintain it? I mean, is it gonna be left as is to grow up, or is it gonna be?
It'll be, when you're a developer, are y'all gonna maintain it? You're gonna leave it grass or?
It's gonna remain common.
I didn't think they could clear, if it was a drainage area and trees had grown on it, I didn't think they could clear those trees off according to EPA.
There's not a blue line stream at that location.
Just
So
what?
There's not a blue line stream that, I'm not.
Yeah,
saying
because
it's
they did away with that and put it over there. They used to come here and went down through here, but they put it down there. That's what, they changed it when they put in the south winds.
Well, and speaking right now, it's gonna be open space. And if it's a ditch there, obviously it's gonna channel water. They're gonna have to take that into consideration when they do their stormwater design to make it work. But as far as, based on the site plan, it's like it's
Well, if they
grass.
clear that, my house is sitting right here, and I'm gonna be looking the back of everybody's house. Could they put something there for site protection?
We're gonna adhere to whatever landscape requirements are in the ordinance, and
That's what I'm asking, is it in the requirements that you do that?
You're not, because you're getting through with this concept right now. So I mentioned about doing landscaping, y'all chose not to do it at that particular time, so as right now, you're not proposing a landscape at that location.
I'm sorry, Doug, can you speak up and can everyone speak up so that everything y'all are saying and make it in the minutes?
As proposed right now, there's no landscape proposed along the property line of Mr. Brown's property, as currently they're presented to the council right now. So it's up to the developer if he wants to install landscape or not install landscape. But as presented on the site plan, there's no type of buffer in between, because there's no buffer required between residential and residential, there's no buffer required. Typically, buffer is required if you're doing between commercial and residential, since it's residential against residential. It's not required. Now, sometimes developers will do it just to be a good neighbor, but is it required by the ordinance? No, it's not required. It's up to the developer whether they wish to install a buffer along their property line to shield the adjacent property or not.
Would it be an issue installing some type of buffer for privacy, sir? Just to be neighborly?
we have a 20-foot buffer already, so typically when we have a buffer, we try to leave it undisturbed. So I can't recall exactly what sort of plantings are already existing in terms of.
It's just growing up
forestry.
in pine trees, briars, blackberry bushes, a little bit of everything. It's just growing, but that's what I'm telling you. They went in, when they cleared this, they went down into that ditch, and I don't think by EPA you can do that in a development. You're not supposed to do that according to EPA regulations, because every time they've cleared forest land around us, they've left a buffer on each side of that drainage area. And it's not even a drainage area, like this is where the whole water runs down through.
All right.
But I would like some kind of buffer between me and them, because when we look at the back door of everybody's house.
Every time they do.
Thank
you. We put 6 years, we get a problem with the neighbors. For people to stay, if they're gonna say everything else is in the county, nobody's speaking to our city, nobody's speaking to our city schools. Even though the property is the fault.
Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition?
We need people to come.
If you would, please, come to the podium.
Yeah, but just not, big knocks out there, there's not good people.
My name is Mary Nash, and I live across the street from this. I live at 2214 Waxhaw Highway. My concern is the direction the city is taking with the density in this area. There are 400 more houses, not counting these 77 that are going to be built within sight of this. And my concern is, what is the city thinking? Why are we being dumped on? I mean, really, We've been there, I've been there my whole life too. But it even began with 1959 when they wanted a belt loop around Monroe, which is now Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. That was asked for in 1959 by the city. We're not in the city. We're in the ETJ. We're in the county. I can't vote city elections, but I'm being affected. I wish you would consider what you're doing to our county and our city. If it were you, would you want 500 houses in your nose? I know it's tax dollars, but think about it. Just think about it. The density is way, way, way too much out there. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action.
Motion that petition did not meet requirements based on one-car garages.
Would that be the annexation petition? Because that would not be a, I think the question would be if Councilmember Keziah, is that the whole issue of whether or not it gets rezoned. No, sir, you should sit down.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. I just wanted to make a
Unless the
comment.
mayor asks for you to come on up.
All right.
Is that the first action you'd have to take is related to the annexation. And
Well, your first one, though, is your annexation, but
Yes.
mine is motion that petition did not meet requirements.
Well, the requirements, though, are whether or not it meets the requirements under the annexation statutes. The one-car garage would not be.
Well, just only said a
So
one-car
that
garage.
what I would suggest is if your concern is that the council should not approve the project, the easiest way then to do it would be to not annex it in the city, and that ends the discussion, and then you move on to your next item.
Okay.
If that is what council wishes to do.
Well, they may not. That's just my motion.
All right, make your motion. State your motion.
Well, first,
You don't know.
that's not exactly what number B says, Majid.
I'm working off the agenda, Councilmember Keziah, and I mean, it's, and if let me pull up my copy.
I'll
and
put it any
I'll-
way you want to hear it, but I still got
It
no
says,
way.
sir, it's whether or not the petition meets the requirements of NCGS 160A 31, or it's the petition does not meet the requirements. And if you say that it meets the requirements, then you're headed towards annexing it. If the concern is that you do not wish to approve this project in general, it becomes an issue of do you want to annex it first into the city? And if not, then you're done. If you annex it and then you go through the process of
All
whether
right.
or not you're going to approve it.
Motion to deny the annexation request. Might not get a second, but I'll make it.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Does that
I'm sorry?
does that satisfy you, Mr. Attorney?
It would say that the petition does not meet the requirements, and that would be sufficient.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that'll pass.
And Mayor, that would mean that the item ends here, because once you determine it does not meet that standard, it cannot be annexed, and then therefore you do not have to act on the rezoning.
Mr. Finn, did you have a statement or question? I saw you come up, sir.
Yes, if I may. I would rather not lose the opportunity to get this thing pushed through. If I have to concede on the garages, I will concede on the garages, if that's the only issue council has.
Well, it's have to come back now. It's already,
Well,
we
you
already
could,
voted.
you could reconsider, you can reconsider the annexation, and if the concern is then you bring it into the city and then you work through, if the only concern is the garages, then Councilmember Keziah would, or whichever member wishes to bring motion, could approve it and place that condition on your rezoning.
Your motion was on the
Your
one-car
original
garage?
No, my motion was that, to deny the annexation.
Based on the fact that it was one car or just?
Well, no, because Majid told me that wasn't kosher. So, motion to
Well,
deny.
but if your goal is you can bring it into the city, bring the
Well,
property in the city,
my-
and then deny the zoning if you want.
First of all, I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't impressed with your subdivision at all. I wasn't impressed with the way the houses looked. I wasn't impressed with the one-car garage. The one thing we want to do is when homeowners buy a house, 10 years from now, I want to see it appreciate, not depreciate. And that's my personal opinion.
I wish you had asked me that when I was up here speaking. I would have addressed that. We are trying to match south winds. We are not trying to do anything extraordinary out of what's already there. Plus, we share a street, so the frontage of some of our homes.
You can come back and ask for reconsideration, but right now, my motion to deny the annexation request stands as it is.
That's already, that's already, if you would like to come back and, Doug and him can tell you what you need to do, sir.
Okay.
And, if you'd like to come back for another, consideration, Doug or some of that staff can hear you, sir.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your indulgence, Councilmember.
Okay.
You are.
That took care, okay.
But I think the key is you got where, I believe council got where it wished to go.
Item 19. I can't eat it. Item 19, okay.
20.
That's failed, it's over with.
20,
20.
120.
No, now you're at 19. 19 is Alexander.
Okay.
We're on 20. We're on 20.
I'm sorry, then it's 20.
We at 20.
No, we just did.
That's right, you did 19, you're right, you're at 20 now.
Wow,
Well, there
I
we
got
go.
one in there, didn't
You
I?
got me good, Mayor, ABC
I
Towing.
thought myself, well, I thought I just done that.
Well,
Okay.
you had 2 annexations in a row, that just messes me
All
up.
right, I ain't missed one yet.
You got
I
it,
ain't
Mayor.
fool you. Item 20, request to rezone property, 2714 Curtis Street. Right ahead. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Colorado.
Good evening, I'm Carrie Mensler with the Planning Department. Tonight, I'm presenting a zoning map and text amendment request by Mark Davis for the property located at 2417 Curitan Street from General Industrial to Conditional District ABC Towing. The subject property is highlighted in blue. It is north of Curitan Street. I'll zoom out just a little bit. As I mentioned, the property is highlighted in blue. It's north of Curitan Street. The land to the north is vacant. It is industrial. The land to the east is an industrial site that is also vacant. The land to the south is the Tyson Poultry Plant, and the land to the west is a fabrication / machinery use. The subject property is currently zoned general industrial, and all properties surrounding this parcel are also zoned general industrial. Just because it's a little bit hard to see, this is the property here in the middle of the map. The proposed use is for an automotive towing company, and the applicant is proposing to retain all GI uses. The property currently has a 7,300 square foot building and a paved parking area in front of the building. There's also a fenced-in area that is gravelled for storage of the towed vehicles, and no additional improvements are being proposed for this site. So here is the existing building. Here's some paved parking in this area, and then this is a fenced-in area that is gravel that the applicant proposes to use for the towed vehicles. The land development plan indicates this property is located in the manufacturing, logistics, and aerospace / industrial area. These areas support manufacturing and production at a variety of scales, including assembly and processing, warehousing and distribution, bulk storage, and utilities. Clusters of uses that support or serve similar industrial uses typically locate nearby. Planning staff's of the opinion that the proposed use is consistent with the future land use plan and is a reasonable use and in the public interest. Staff did post the property and sent letters to the property owners within 150 feet of the subject property 10 days prior to this public hearing. Planning board and staff did recommend approval of the rezoning from general industrial to conditional district ABC Towing, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, and there's a representative from the business here as well.
One question, ABC towing.
Yes.
They will be towing wrecked vehicles?
That's my understanding, but I'll defer that to the applicant's representative, if that's all right with you, exactly what vehicles they tow.
Thanks, Jason Pearson. 3222 Love Mill, but I work for ABC Towing.
You'll be towing wrecked vehicles. What about repossessed?
We don't do any repossessions.
Okay.
We do impounds from the apartments here in Monroe, like if they don't have tags or insurance. We do police rotations, accident calls, and AAA calls.
And so they're going in open fenced area?
Yeah,
and
we
they'll be
already have,
visible?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, the fence it has like a netting around it.
Oh, it does have a
Yeah,
netting, so you
can't
just,
see.
okay, that was gonna be.
We have to have a fenced in area. Only the registered owners can get in to get cedar vehicles or get stuff out.
My
It has to
question
be
was about
fenced
the
in.
netting, and so from the highway, you just don't see a bunch of wrecked vehicles?
ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I'm familiar with the fenced ins and all that. What size area will you have that's gonna be fenced in?
I don't know the exact.
Next question is, it is covered, the fence is covered.
Yeah, the fence will be covered with the netting and barbed wire across the top and cameras.
Another thing I wanna be sure of, and I know we've got orders to cover this, but I just wanna be sure there ain't cars towed and sitting all over the lots everywhere else, and half of them inside the fence and half of them outside the fence.
No, everything has to be in the fence. Nothing can be sitting outside the lot.
Just to clarify too, because I don't think I made it very clear, the fenced-in area, there is a note that says it will be fenced at all times and will maintain a screening, whether that's the mesh or the privacy slats. And of course, if we would send them a letter if there was any issue with that. And then there's also a note that provides that any towed vehicles would have to be in the fenced area, not just elsewhere on the property.
Yeah, I've seen these fences before, I'm familiar with them. Sometimes you get 30 inside and 25 outside, but I know we got our ordinances, and that's not the problem. I just want to be sure that the area is nice, neat, and clean for your business.
Yes.
And for the neighbors, that's what I'm after.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Any questions from you? Anyone? Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Anyone who'd like to speak in favor? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Motion that the petition meets the requirements.
Actually, you're on 20, so you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, I'm
Now you're in
sorry.
land development. See, you got the
Motion
same
to-
place I did.
Motion to adopt a resolution approving land development plan compliance.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.106 of the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending section 156.98 of the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, that'll pass. Item 21. Recognize Mr. David Morton, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Tracy. David Morton with the Police Department. We're looking to apply for a grant from Monroe Solutions in the amount of $1,500 to be used for educational materials for our gang resistance education and training, the GREAT program, and also Eddie Eagle gun safe program. It's, I said it was for $1,500 and there's zero match on this.
All right, this is,
Motion to authorize staff to submit an application for the Omnova Solutions grant.
Second.
have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that'll pass. Hope you get your grant, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Item 22, budget amendment, replace the Whirlpool at Aquatic Fitness Center.
Yay. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm filling in for Kathy Henderson. She wasn't available tonight. This item is a request to consider adoption of a budget amendment for the replacement of the Whirlpool at the Monroe Aquatics and Fitness Center. It was planned in the FY20 budget, but the Whirlpool has completely quit working, so they'd like to do the budget amendment now, appropriate $115,000 from their fund balance, and move forward with replacement.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That'll pass. Good to know you got your own budget out there. Okay. Item 23, resolution approving local water supply plan.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Russ Colbath, Water Resource Director. For your consideration this evening is the approval of our local water supply plan. It couldn't be a better week to bring this to you because it is National Water Week. So I did place a sports water ball at each of your places, not staff, Ms. Larry, that's tomorrow for you guys, but it's a week to celebrate the value that drinking water brings to the community, economic development, public health protection, fire protection, meet our critical needs. So celebrate with us this week. So it's great timing to bring our local water supply plan to you for adoption. Water Resource Department staff completed our a draft of our local water supply plan and submitted it to the State Department of Environmental Quality. This is part of the normal 5-year cycle where we have to submit and then bring to council for approval. The plan uses 2017 as baseline data, and we did receive confirmation that the state has approved the plan. So the next step is for council to approve the resolution in your package. Our local water supply plan outlines information about our city water system, our water demands, and our water sources. The water planning section examines demands and supplies, and if you look at the plan, it indicates that based on average annual growth of 1.5%, which is what we've pretty much experienced for the last 10 years, our current supplies will last till about 2050. So we're in pretty good shape. Allows us to commit to projects that council is interested in. We also provide a graph in your packet that shows what if that increase in demand goes at 2% a year or 1% a year, and you can see what it would do to the timing differential when we would have to develop those next supplies. If we stay with the current trends, it would be out in around 2050 before we'd have to do something. The plan does identify a couple options for future supply: the Rocky River, potential partnerships with the new Yadkin water system that's being installed by Union County. But we also have a reclaimed water master plan. Some of the council members who have been here a little bit longer might remember we do have a master plan for using treated wastewater, reclaimed water for non-potable uses. We have resources that we can develop. And basically, as the 2050 timeframe approaches, all the these will be reevaluated and recommendations brought to council depending on economic development and the growth rate that we experience. So the Public Enterprise Committee did approve this item to come to you at their April meeting, and with that, I would recommend that council approve the resolution that is in your agenda package. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, any questions, Mr. Russ? You're doing, Russ, thank you. How about how we do it out on East Franklin Street? Ms. King would like to know.
I haven't met Ms. King in person. I spoke with her on the phone, but we are doing it. It's a difficult project. All I can say is if you have complaints, call me, please. We'll address them ASAP.
Sure. Ms. King has not called me. I seen her sitting in the audience, and that's why I did that. But it's a project.
Yes, we spoke and traded emails, and it's a pleasure to meet you. If you have any, just email Rich and I. We'll come down as quick as we can.
May I come to the podium real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Since I didn't do it last time, I will have to say that these folks have jumped through hoops for the community, and traffic that has been on Franklin for years, number one, shouldn't have been on Franklin from the start. That's another subject, another meeting, another day. But these Russ and his folks have been over backwards. I take water to them when I can. I say hello when I can, and I encourage the community to bear with us as we move through this process. And so we're putting some smiles on faces. And if he has any problems with community members, they can come see me.
Oh, boy, okay.
So thank you for that.
Let the record show that.
We thank you for
calling.
What's their phone number? We'll put it on call forward.
I do have that, but I'm not going to divulge it at this time. So.
Okay.
I'm glad we sent it out to all the community. Thank you for that.
Okay, motion to adopt a resolution.
Second. Have a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's adopted. Oh, Ms. King, I just saw you sitting in the audience. That's why I said that. I know. thank you for your comment. Russ, thank you very much for what you're doing. I've heard a lot of good comments about the Franklin Street. I know it's a big job out there, but it's a job that has to be done. We've got to get that large water line in.
It'll be a nice improvement, but it's a tough one, so thanks for bearing with us, Mayor and council members.
We're going to put up with that, and when we get through with it, we'll have a nice paved street out there, I hope, and a nice water line. Thank you for all you do.
I've got the next one, so.
All right, moving right along. Yeah, go right ahead with the next one.
24.
Okay.
Yeah.
For council's consideration this evening is our adoption of our water shortage response plan. This is very similar to the local water supply plan, and every 5 years we do have to review. In this case, it's our ordinance. So we review it, we submit it to the state. They have approved the ordinance with no changes, so we're not bringing any changes to you. The ordinance is as it was adopted last in 2010. But we are bringing it to you this evening for approval. This ordinance does provide us a framework for managing water shortages should drought or other emergencies arise, and it defines what will trigger the declaration of water shortage, the progressive levels of how we would manage that, public notification, etc. So I'd be glad to answer any questions about the ordinance. But there are no changes to the ordinance. We just have to re-adopt and approve at the council level to meet state law.
Motion to adopt resolution.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passed. Thank you, Russ. Appreciate it, sir. Item 25, a resolution approving street name change from section of Lomax Street between Concord Avenue and Secret Shortcut Road to be renamed Help, H-E-L-P, Help Street.
Good evening. The city has received a request from the Help Crisis Pregnancy Center to rename Lomax Street to Help Street from Concord Avenue to Secret Shortcut Road. The remaining section of Lomax Street from Secret Shortcut Road to its end west of Sale Street is not affected by the requested name change. Staff has been informed that the owners of the two parcels addressed off Lomax Street on this section of the roadway have been contacted by the Help Crisis Pregnancy Center by certified mail regarding the proposed name change with no response. Help Crisis Pregnancy Center fronts on Lomax Street, but its address from Secret Shortcut Road. Both parcels along the north side of existing Lomax Street between Secret Shortcut Road and Concord Avenue are owned by Help Center Incorporated. That's parcels 1 and 2. Of the two parcels addressed off Lomax Street located along the south side, 413 Lomax Street is vacant, with 407 Lomax Street currently rented. These two parcels would be the only properties required to be readdressed. The General Services Committee and staff recommend renaming the section of Lomax Street between Concord Avenue and Secret Shortcut Road to Help Street, and that City Council take action to approve Resolution R-2019-25 approving the street name change.
Motion to adopt resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
And Mayor,
Yes.
we have someone here with the pregnancy center, Lisa. And
Mayor,
I'd
if
like
you
to
just
give her a
clarify
couple
that there's
seconds.
no one opposed.
Okay. No, there's no one opposed. Yep.
Okay.
So it's,
She wants to give you a little bit of update on the pregnancy center.
okay. If
This
yes,
is Lisa.
okay, yes.
She's been patiently sitting and waiting for us to approve this.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Do you need my name or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay, Lisa Bradle, B-R-A-D-L-E.
And if you could hold it to 3 minutes, we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That's what we allowed everybody.
Absolutely. My name is Lisa. As Mr. Keziah was kind enough to introduce me, I thank you for taking time to hear me tonight. I work at the Help Pregnancy Center here in town. We are currently on the corner of Lomax and Seacrest Shortcut. We have been here since 1991. Tara Quinn is our founder and executive director. I think some of you are familiar with Ms. Quinn. She has been instrumental in, we are a ministry, we're a nonprofit ministry, and we minister to everyone in our community and surrounding areas. We work very closely with a lot of other agencies in our community, including the health department, social service, and other ministries such as Crisis Assistant, Loaves and Fishes, and things like that. We are able to provide clothing up to size 6X, which is about school age. We do diapers. We have an Earn While You Learn program. We offer parenting classes, budgeting classes, car seat safety, fire safety. It's an earn while you learn program, and so in exchange for the classes that our clients take, they are able to receive items they need, such as car seats, strollers, pack and plays, cribs, items along those lines. We've just begun a men's ministry. It's been in for a little over a year now. Brad Austin is in charge of that. Our goal is to reach men in our community, men who may be from broken homes themselves, and to try to teach them and to bring them alongside so that they can learn how to be strong family men, strong husbands, strong fathers, to reach into their children's lives. Last year, we served 2,136 clients. This is a variety of services that we offer. We offer free pregnancy tests and limited ultrasounds. And I'm here if you have any questions. We're the best kept secret in Monroe. I've been there now for about 13 years.
Thank you for what you do. I know I've
Thank
been
you.
through that. I've been through it.
Yes,
over there.
sir, I know you have.
And what you do is a great service to a lot of people. And
Thank
for
you.
what
We're
do.
blessed to do it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 26, budget message for fiscal year 2019-20.
Mayor and City Council are requested that the budget message be accepted into the record as if read publicly in its entirety.
Question. There was something in there about a full-time position to answer the phone for complaints or questions.
Yeah, it may be the time to come up, but what I want to say is we're not adopting the budget yet.
Okay.
We're
Just
just reading it
accept-
into the
Okay,
to the
well,
minute.
then I withdraw
I'm not
that.
saying you can't bring that up. I'm just
I'll
saying
wait.
you
I'll
might
wait
want to
until-
wait. Okay.
I'll wait until it's time to
All right.
adopt.
Okay. That was.
Need a motion to,
Motion to accept the
I
budget.
have a motion. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 26 passed. Item 27, City Council Planning Retreat. We did talk about that. At this time, we're going to look at it a little later down the road for various reasons. So we will bring this back up at another time.
A motion to table it, then.
Okay. So we will look at this at a later date.
it doesn't, if there's no action, it doesn't need, but
No.
if the mayor wants to formally table it, he can. If a member of council wants to formally table it, but if you're taking no action, it doesn't matter.
I'm not taking any action. It's something we can bring up at any time we want to, and I think down the road will be a good time to talk about it at a later date. Item 28, discussion of City of Monroe's 175th anniversary. Pete, was you going to address that for a little bit, or who was going to talk about that? I can, Mayor. I know we talked about it a little bit, what we might want to do.
Yes, Mayor, Council, we did receive a request from a citizen wanting to know, let us know, remind us that it is the 175th anniversary of the incorporation of the City of Monroe. So staff has kind of looked into it, and Madam Clerk came up with a good idea of maybe incorporating it with our tree lighting, since the incorporation was in very early December, 175 years ago. Follow up with possibly a proclamation, and just kind of work with Parks and Rec in doing something a little special to recognize that 175th at the tree lighting. If that would be suitable to y'all. I believe the clerk also did a little research. Other cities don't typically celebrate the 25-year, they typically celebrate the 50-year marks. So at the 200th celebration, we'll have a big party. And
Well, we had a big celebration 25 years ago.
Yes, sir.
We had a lot of speakers from the Senate and everywhere else to come in and speak, and I think this would be adequate, in my opinion, to do some type of recognition, and to do some Christmas tree lighting with some various different things. I think that'd be good. Council, any discussion?
Sounds good.
Okay, I have a motion to do that.
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second?
Second.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, we'll
And we'll reach out to that citizen that brought that to us, to our attention.
And at the
Monroe,
25th.
you don't look a day over 160.
No, I'll plan the next one when it's 200 years.
From the grave.
Listen, I'm not but 19 now. But I just want to be sure people do know we do celebrate this, and we will do the big one at the 200. We're gonna do something nice in December. I think it's only fitting to do that on the 175th birthday. That's what I'm gonna do on that. All right.
On your 175th?
On my 135th. Item 29, we're going into closed session at this
I
time.
move to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Sections A1, A3, and A6 to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or the United States are not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 12032 of the General Statutes to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the city attorneys and the city council, to consider and give instruction to the city's attorney concerning the handling or settlement of claims, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness of, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against any individual, public officer, or employee.
Second.
Excuse me. Hi, the council's about to go into closed session. Are you part of the closed session?
No, I just want to see the whole session.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, you have a motion, you don't yet have a second.
I seconded it.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second. Thank you, ladies.
You can go ahead and get the vote, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're going into closed session.
Mr. Mayor,
But I'm gonna have to go to the restroom.
can we have a 10-minute break?
You have 5 minutes. Be back in 2.